Hello lovely people, how are you all today? I do hope you're well. Happy New Year's Eve. Before we come on to New Year, how was your Christmas? I hope you all had a good Christmas, the sort of Christmas you were hoping for. I did. I had a lovely, excuse me, had a lovely couple of days. Basically, shut the front door, shut the world out, just me hunkering down here, get up when I fancy, go to bed when I fancy, eat when I fancy. It was just lovely. It's a kind of luxury almost to just do nothing and not have to justify it, even though I'm sort of justifying it now, aren't I? Lots of reading. Oh my goodness, I've read some corkers. Now, I have read a load of books in the week between Christmas and New Year. I'll bring those to you separately because I want to talk about them and some other stuff. But what I might get to today, if there's time, is because it's right at the end of the year, I have now chosen my book of the year. Gosh, it's a hard choice because I've read so many great books this year. In fact, you know what? Pretty much every book I read was great. It's probably because I chose them. No, some of them weren't chosen. I'll talk about the books another day. I've read some stinkers too. But yeah, we'll come on to books another day. But if there's time today, I will let you know my book of the year. So Christmas was delicious. It was deliciously quiet. Loved it. Now, also, just on the subject of Christmas, oh my goodness, that video. I'm so sorry about the poor quality. You know, I hummed and hawed about putting it out, and I thought, well, actually, I know that the vast majority of you, when it's a chatty video, you don't watch, because I'm not showing you something like a recipe or showing you something in the garden, but you listen. So I thought, okay, we'll get away with it. What I didn't know was the last 10 minutes of sound just upped and disappeared. I have no idea what happened, because when I filmed it with sound. When I downloaded the footage into my computer, it had sound. When I edited it, it had sound. When I had rendered it ready to be sent to YouTube, it had sound. I sent it to YouTube, and once it was at YouTube, I didn't check it again. So somewhere between being here at home and being sent to YouTube, it lost the sound. So I apologise. I know a lot of you said, look, Vivi, it didn't matter. It was just nice to hang out. Thank you for being patient and understanding. I know some folk tried to lip read. Now, I'm not gonna go over that old ground, bar one thing, because it was just when I was opening this beautiful, and the focus issue. So hopefully that is sorted today. That was driving me insane. So the water bottle, and I was saying it's great because I have my normal water bottle. Now, if I go to the garden, that's all I take with me, because I've got that big old plastic bottle that I use, and I refill it while I'm at the garden. We have got a tap with fresh, clean water that I can refill from, great. But if I'm going on a train somewhere and it's taking a while, that's generally not enough. I run out. So I either have to do without or try and find a refill station. And thankfully these days there are more and more refill stations. There's one right outside my station on my high street here. Brilliant. If not, well, I could buy a bottle of water. I really don't want to do that though. So generally I'll go without. So to have a second bottle, great. What I'm wondering about this though is I think I was having a sort of a squeeze. Is it a single layer of metal? I can't work out whether there's any insulation to it. What I thought I might try is, you know me, I don't really go for hot drinks very much anyway. But I do in the winter enjoy hot chocolate. I've enjoyed my pucker teas. I've got, I think, maybe 3 or 4 left, and I definitely know which ones I like. Anyway, yeah, so I'm not much for hot drink, although hot chocolate I'm enjoying. And I've got to say, oh my goodness, a massive thank you to Sandy. Sandy, thank you. A parcel was delivered. I'm not sure what day it is. Was it Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas? It's a massive, massive pot of instant hot chocolate. It's the Cadbury's one, but what I love about it is it's one that you make up with water rather than milk, so it's not going to cost anything other than boiling the kettle to make it up. So I thought what I'd do with this is oh my goodness, the garden. We'll come on to the garden in a second. Lots to catch up on today before we crash into another year. Yeah, there'll be quite a lot to do in the garden in January. So I thought, make up a hot chocolate, take it in this, see if it keeps it warm. Oh, pardon me. Because you know what, even if it doesn't keep it really warm, I don't mind a tepid hot chocolate. It's so yummy anyway. But now here's the lovely thing, and I can confirm, obviously, since Christmas I've spoken with my sister. When I pulled it out, I suddenly thought, let me start at the beginning of the picture. It starts here. Do you see this lovely border? Pinks, purples. Oh, it's gorgeous. Almost instantly I thought, I think that's Hyde Hall, which is the RHS garden that my sister and I visited as part of our road trip with Auntie Teapot. Auntie Teapot's last trip. Yeah, it was a beautiful sort of morning, lunchtime we had there. Gorgeous weather, not too crowded, I mean barely crowded at all. The borders were magnificent. Don't we all dream of having these deep borders of these gorgeous, blousy perennial plants? Loved it. Both my sister and I took loads of photos there. She's a great photographer, really good eye. And I thought, oh, it's from Hyde Hall. I recognise it. So, and then I was thinking, I don't remember, because at the end of our trip, we exited through the gift shop, and you know, I'm not really much for all that kind of gifty stuff, but I did go into the postcard section and I bought some postcards which were lovely old illustrations of various tomatoes. Of course, I got that because I sent it to Paul in the absence of finding him the tomato book he was after, postcard of tomatoes. I thought, I'm sure I didn't see my sister making any purchases in the gift shop. She didn't. This is her photograph. So do you remember that beautiful little, it's a very slight book. Can I reach, oh, it's too high. A little photo book that she made from photos of the trip. And it's one of these where, I'm just looking, I look a bit Casper's ghost today, don't I? Don't worry, I am warm enough. Warm in a second. Yeah, so it's through the company that she's done those photo books with. So you pay for the item, the bottle, and I don't know whether you pay extra to have your print put on. I presume you do. So it's my sister's photo of a lovely day in Hyde Hall on a water bottle. So I love it in so many ways. It's practical. I will use it a lot. It's a reminder of a really, really lovely few days we spent together. And it's beautiful because it's a beautiful place. So, yay. Did any of you manage to lip read any of that at the end of my silent movie for Christmas Day? Thanks, Sissio. Oh, I've just got, what's that in there? Honey and lemon. Also, there's been postal disruptions, and I kind of knew that my Christmas would go on, which is great. Now, we'll see. You see, this is a new set of thermals from Ruth. Thank you so much, Ruth. I've already written to thank her, but it's the top and bottoms again. And it's such a perfect gift. Thank you so much. Because it is, look, it's not freezing in the UK anymore. It may get that way again. But a lot of the time at home I'm sitting still, and when you're sitting still and there's no heat on, you just feel it. So it's great, and I'm chuffed to have a third set because, and it's all part of this fuel saving thing that we're all doing because we're all being fleeced, for goodness sakes. And those of us that can make these cuts, yeah, we jolly well need to. I know for some people they just can't cut back because of whatever reasons. But one of the other things I've tried to do is, I would normally do my laundry once a week, and I tried to I tried to shift it to once a fortnight. That wasn't great, so it's once every 10 days. Now, there's two parts to that in a way. One, it's less use of the washing machine, great, so less electricity consumption, and when the wash is finished, the washing machine gets unplugged. I never used to bother unplugging the washing machine, but I mean everything else I unplug, but now even the washing machine off. So there's less frequency of washing, but also it's taking ages for things to dry. And literally the day this set arrived, I was thinking it's bath day anyway. I'm getting too warm now. The sun's coming out and I've got a light in my face. I can take my gloves off for a minute. Yeah, I was thinking, they arrived in the post and I thought, oh, this is perfect, because I was planning for it to be bath day and laundry day. But by 10 days, I'd used up my two other sets. I mean, I've been wearing each for about 5 days. They both needed to be washed, which would mean they wouldn't be dry for 3 or 4 days. Eek! So this parcel arrived from Ruth. I was like, thank you, Ruth. Perfect timing. Had my bath. I put the laundry on whilst I had my bath. Got out of my bath into brand new thermals. Yay! Oh yeah, I am. Probably hot flush moment. So just, thank you to all of you for all your gifts, generosity. You spoil me. It's beautiful. I love you all for it. Thank you. Oh, and another surprise turned up in the post from Barbara. All sorts of wee bits and bobs. There's a shampoo bar. This cute little sign. Note to self, must water the garden every day. Yeah, I kind of don't need room. I should kind of hang that round here, shouldn't I? Please let us not have a drought again. There was some chocolate. I've scoffed it, and the evidence is on my collar. You know what it was? I think that was last night, late last night. I was curled up in bed, reading, eating chocolate. Look, it's only once a year. But yeah, all lovely bits and bobs. And I really, really loved this. I don't know if the camera will be able to pick it up if I tilt it. There we go. You see, so many books, so little time. Ain't that the truth? I love it. I mean, I love my books, I do. I love reading. I should put it. And the thing is, I might be a bit weird for this. I have a little collection of bookmarks, not a vast amount, but different books need different bookmarks. Does that sound mad? So I've got one that's from an exhibition of futuristic art from years ago. Russian futurism. There we go, quite niche. I can't put that in a book I'm reading about the countryside. It doesn't go. At the moment, I'm reading a book that was published in 1937, so it can't have a modern bookmark. It has to have an old bookmark. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Ruth. And thank you, Sandy. Big box of hot chocolate. My goodness. Yes, spoiled. Happy. That's it. Content. Content is such a great word. I was on the phone with Paul this morning and we were both using the word content in different contexts, but saying, in life, really, isn't that what we want? Contentment. Now, also in the post, do you remember, you might not have been watching that long, but we had a new couple arrive on our allotment site in 2019, M&M. And actually, it was only a short time after they'd started on our plot. It was the first time I had Richard and Paul over at my garden, and we were swigging champagne and being noisy, and I was like, come on over and join us. I didn't know them at that stage. Anyway, Lovely, lovely, lovely couple. Adore them. I knew in an instant these were people I was going to like and be friends with, and we became friends. But really selfishly, they've emigrated. They've moved to Norway. I'm happy for them because it's been a dream for a long time. I am happy for them, of course I am. But from a selfish point of view is, can people please stop leaving London? All my friends are leaving. The reason I'm mentioning them is because, when did I see Mark? Some towards the end of last year, because he came for lunch and Richard and Paul were over for lunch as well. Then I think I must have seen him subsequently. I think I saw them both. They were back over in the UK tying up loose ends. And of course, Mark and I chat vegetables. You know, it's like, that's our kind of mutual common ground meeting place. And he was asking about, I'm trying to think, I think it was earlier this year because they'd had their first season there last year. He was asking me about tomatoes because I love my tomatoes. As in, not just to eat them, I love growing them, I love all the different varieties. I've tried all sorts of varieties over the years. And he was asking me about tomatoes for growing in Norway. I didn't have a Scooby-Doo, mate. I don't know, mate, I ain't grown in Norway. So I put it to you all because firstly, there will be some of you not in Norway with similar conditions. I'm thinking, parts of the States and parts of Canada. But I also know that there are a couple of you from Norway. Hello, Norway. Good you, is it? And Sweden, so similar climate. And you came back to me with some ideas of varieties and timings of sowing and growing. So I passed all of that on to Mark. Brilliant. And I've just had a little card from them. And I wanted to share it with you because this is down to you all. He said, thank you for the tips on the tomatoes. It came in very handy. So I think varieties and all that. And they said, he said, they were a lot later than they would have been when they were back here in London. They were much later, but no blight, and they were still cropping until late September. So it sounds like, whichever varieties and sowing times and things you suggested, it sounds like it's worked out perfectly. So thank you, and thank you from Mark. He also said, which made me giggle, they are now in their home. When they first went, they were sort of renting a friend's place until they got everything settled, all the paperwork and all these things that need to happen, and yes, you are allowed to stay and work and all that kind of stuff. So now they've got their own home, and so they can start making a garden. I think they're renting it, but they have the permission of the owner. So they started to make a garden, and there is a slope, but Mark was also saying, and this is what I want to share with you, I'm not going to be able to pronounce the Norwegian, but he's saying that he's cleared the slope of a lot of ground elder, which in Norwegian, I beg your pardon, I was about to say Swedish, in Norwegian, apologies in advance, is known as skvalokal, ground elder. But he said the rough translation of skvalokal is gossip cabbage. Love that. Gossip cabbage. So what we call ground elder is over there is gossip cabbage. I don't know how that works. I love that. I tell you, from having allotment for all these years, I think I know a few gossipy cabbages. Lovely, 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 lovely. What a perfect Christmas. And that was my Christmas. It was a perfect Christmas, but it was so far removed from the sort of Christmas you might see in the media, in your Hallmark videos and all that kind of stuff. It was perfect because it was just what I wanted and what I needed. Loved it. Actually, I am going to come on to my book of the year. Can't resist. So, oh my goodness, it's been really hard to choose. Because you remember that tranche of books I read I love this hoodie. This is my Joanne hoodie. It's so snuggly. Yeah, I read a whole tranche of books. It was end of September into October from... They were accidentally sort of Black History Month books. Loved them. Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. What a corker. I think I might reread it, although not my copy because I've given it away already. The Andy Levy Small Island. I didn't like it, but it was a great read, if you see what I mean. So many different books. Way back at the beginning of the year when I was in hospital, and then when I came out of hospital, I was really good about not rushing myself again. So tons and tons of reading. There has been one standout book though. Dick Prenike's One Man's Wilderness. My gift from Rob over in Canada. I knew I would love it. I did love it. I'm not going to go on about it too much today because I've talked about it a lot before. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I had a feeling when I was reading it, I had a feeling it was going to be my book of the year. But it's not alone. I couldn't decide. So I've got 2 books of the year this year. How very naughty. And this one I've literally only just read about 2 nights ago. I finished reading it. So my 2 books of the year are One Man's Wilderness and Alaskan Odyssey, all about building a cabin and living in the middle of nowhere, by Dick Prenike. And my second book of the year is The Private Life of an English Field Meadowland by John Lewis Stemple. I have absolutely adored it. I made some notes. I tried to make a few notes after I've read them if I'm going to talk to you about it. Otherwise, I read so much I'll forget. It's laid out as a diary, so it starts in January, finishes in December. It's a very small farm, 40 acres in Hereford. So it's in England, but it's right nudged up against the Welsh border. Simply put, it's his observations of one of his meadows. It's the hay meadow. Birds, insects, animals, including his own livestock, the trees, the flowers, the grasses, all the different grasses. There's history about how the field got its name. There's history about hedges and how they came into being, and he does some research to find out how old his own hedges are. Fascinating. It's full of country lore and folklore, so the common names that we give to various flowers that hint at their uses once upon a time, how we once used a herb or a flower medicinally informs its common name. The common names of, but it's a feast of bucolic loveliness. I was swimming in this book. There's a section end of July, beginning of August, when it's the haymaking, the hay harvest. I was so there. I could feel my shoulders aching from scything. I could feel sunburn on my shoulders. Extraordinarily beautiful. I would say the whole book is incredibly, it's spiritual, it's romantic, it's sentimental, but it's not rose-tinted. It's sentimental and romantic because he loves it so much, but it's always respectful and practical and grounded. You know, there are some parts which, you know, there's a couple of bits about foxes and fox hunting, which are hard to read. He doesn't describe a hunt, don't worry. As a vegetarian, you can read this book. But what I'm trying to say is it's not that rose-tinted view of the English countryside from a city dweller, you know what I'm trying to say. So, have I said everything I want to say about it? Yeah, an utter delight. I'm going to put this in the shop, in my online shop. I don't know quite when yet, but I might have to reread it before I do. It was very, very transporting. I think what's interesting as well is I couldn't find the publication date in it. It's really, I can't find the publisher page. But there's a little note on the front. It won a prize, the Wainwright Prize, in 2015. So it's obviously, it's in the last 10 years. And it's an interesting take on British agriculture in a changing world. This is talking about agriculture in a sustainable way, as in, or at least thinking about that. You know, we've had some really, really big shifts in how we farm in this country. Interestingly, the book I'm now reading, the one I said that I've got to have the old bookmark for, it's Farming Between the Wars, so it's sort of in the late 20s, early 30s, and it's very much that change from the sort of that working by hand and working with horse culture into the sort of mechanisation of farming and the science that's coming into farming in terms of chemicals, thinking about things like fertilisers. So I'm reading a book now that's about that big shift 100 years ago into mechanisation, and here we are 100 years later, and it's another big shift of how can we do this how can we make farming sustainable? We need to produce all this food still, but how can we do it without damaging the soil itself, but also all of the surrounding countryside, the wildlife, everything. It's been really, really interesting to read these two books back to back. But that, Meadowland, John Lewis Stempel and Dick Prennicke, my book of the year 2022. I'll think of another one later and think, oh, what about that otter book? What about that wild swimming in Orkney? No, they were a bit too self-indulgent. All that redemption stuff I read at the beginning of the year. No, thank you. What I don't know is if he's written anything else. I just saw, I'm going to read you this quote that's on the back. Oh, it's so beautiful. To stand alone in a field in England and listen to the morning chorus of the birds is to remember why life is precious. Ain't that the truth? Oh, just exquisite, beautifully written. I don't want to let it go. It is going to be in the shop. So yeah, there we go. Book of the year. Lovely time of year to get stuck into some books again. The thing is, winter, there's a sharpness to that. Winter is my reading time generally, but this year it's weird because I read that a big tranche of books September, October when I was off social media for a while, and since then I've barely read a thing. I don't know quite what's gone wrong, and I think it's one of those things. Excuse me. Hope this tickle isn't anything. I think reading is like anything, it's habit, isn't it? And I think it's one of those things where we have to make time for it. Again, this is something Paul and I were talking about this morning, have to make time for it. And actually, you know, it's that thing of, for me, especially late at night, I just get into the habit of watching old episodes of QI or Mock the Week, and I love them. But instead of doing that, just read. Oh, and suddenly I've got time to read. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving that again. What will I be reading about at midnight tonight? Farming Between the Wars, or if I get that one finished, I've got some books about bees and beekeeping lined up next. So yes, talking of midnight, where to begin in this crazy year? This year has been crazy outside, and it's been crazy for me. You know, all the obvious global stuff, a war kicking off in Europe, you know, please, let's all hold out hope. But, 3 prime ministers, 4 chancellors of 4 Chancellors of the Exchequer, 3 Prime Ministers, 2 Home Secretaries, and a cabinet in disarray. I mean, just a ridiculous political situation. A Prime Minister on her throne for 45 days who single-handedly, in a split second, crashed our economy, put interest rates, the pound disappeared, in madness. We've had the hottest day ever recorded in the UK. I think the previous record was about 35. This year we had 42.2 in the end, I think it was. Which I know there's a load of you going to be saying, oh, that's nothing. But I don't care about the rest of the world. In the UK, 42 degrees is absurd. There were times this summer when I was up here, it's the middle of the night, 3, 4 in the morning. It was still 38 degrees in my flat. It was horrible. Oh dear. If that happens again, I'm going to buy a fan. Yeah, what else this year? I mean, oh gosh, of course. The big thing, Platty-Jubes, the Platinum Jubilee, which I missed nearly the whole of. Well, I missed the whole Platinum Jubilee. I was in bed. The sickest, pretty much one of the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. Couldn't get over how ill I was. That was COVID. Caught up with a bit of the Platinum Jubilee later on. Like pretty much everybody else I know, adored the Paddington sketch. What a bit of genius. Amazed at the Queen's acting. She acted it really well. Bless her. And then, of course, the Queen's death. So, yeah, it feels like, you know, and I, like probably so many of you, so many of my friends that said the same thing. You know, one of the first things I said was, I'm not a monarchist, but, you know, I'm not a monarchist, but I'm really sad. And I felt genuinely sad. And you could say, oh, well, she was an old lady, why'd you feel sad? Yes, old ladies die, so it's not a shock in that. But there's just something about the fact that she's always been there. For the vast majority of the population, she's always we've ever known. She's on our stamps, she's on our coins. She's the Queen. She's, you know, it's the Queen. I'm a Queen's guide. So, yeah, that was... I felt really sad. And it's sort of hard to explain, and I'm not even going to try to explain it, and I certainly don't have to justify it. I know there was a lot of... It was one of the reasons I ended up going off social media, had that social media break, because I was seeing nastiness, not towards me, but just general nastiness of people saying, well, why are you sad? You didn't even know her. But I think that's the thing, that was the thing with the Queen. I think we all felt, we sort of did know her. She was ours. She gave herself to the country, as it were. So, yeah, I'm not going to justify it. I'm not going to try and explain it. I felt sad. So that was quite a momentous time for a lot of people. It almost seems like a distant memory now, because so much else has happened since, and now we finished the year in this crazy cost of living crisis, and the fuel prices is just, the world's gone mad. Now, I don't watch the news very much. I try to just not go there. I'm aware of what's happening in the world. I try to help where I can in terms of, say, charity or that sort of thing. But there's not much I can do about most of what's going on in the world. There's just not much I can do about it. So I do protect myself, my own mental health. I protect myself from that by, I'm sort of being in my own little bubble, of mixing with like-minded people. I spend my time, I share my time with people that I love, that I respect, that I have things in common with, so that all that kind of, that very negative, chaotic babble that goes on, I try to just shut it out. And I think that kind of serves me well. And also that sort of in that sort of mindset of I can't do anything about that chaos. I've got no control. I can't control what the government do. I can't control what Liz Truss says and brings us all crashing down. I can't control any of that. All I can control is me, my response, and my life. So you might think, oh, you're sticking your head in the sand, Vivi. You know, if you want to think that, you can think that, that's fine. But I try to just keep going, do my own thing, grow a bit of food, and read my books and find joy from it, spend time with friends, spend time talking to friends if I can't be with them, having my little video chats with friends overseas, sewing nice things, you know, saying hello to people in the street, saying morning to people I don't even know, doesn't matter. I try to kind of live in my little Pollyanna world. It's kind of what it is, but, you know, some people may say, well, you're not being realistic, Vivi. You know what? Like I said, I don't care. You could tell me all these horrible things about me. I don't care. I'm Pollyanna. I'm making my world a little Pollyanna world, and that's my way of staying safe mentally and physically to an extent. So all that global stuff has gone on and I've tried to protect myself from it. Of course, on a personal level, wow, this year has been challenging. Crikey. You know, to start the year so poorly and end up in hospital. But I think I was really grown up. I was really grown up this time, because when I came out of hospital, there's no two ways about it. That really floored me. It floored me mentally, because this sense of my body is starting to let me down massively these days. My knees have been doing so for ages, but now all my joints, But yeah, it was a bit of a shock to my system, because I've always been so healthy and strong and I don't let anything stop me. I just carry on, plow on, crash on. But so this is the first time in my life ever that I've been ill, and then afterwards I've taken some time to convalesce. Because normally if I've had an illness in the past, you know, the minute I'm not ill, get back on with things. Like the previous summer, I had chicken pox, which really, that was horrible. But the minute I stopped having spots and stopped scratching, the minute I could leave the house again, as in I no longer have to quarantine, I was straight back in the garden and on with the garden. It's like, hang on, Vivi, you've just had a really nasty virus, give your body a chance to rest. No, get on with it. But this year I did. And I spent February quietly sewing at home. And it was lovely. But I do think that having such a nasty virus and it had gone untreated for so long because I couldn't get an appointment with a doctor, not because I didn't call the doctors, I think that's had a bit of an impact for this whole year, if I'm honest. Certainly then, when was it? February, March, April, May, just over 4 months later, I then got hit with COVID, and that really floored me. So I think what I'm trying to say is, this whole year I've been under par in terms of energy. I've really struggled to produce my normal amount of energy that I normally would. I don't make New Year's resolutions. We've talked about this before. You know, life doesn't change at midnight tonight. It's not. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? We're so obsessed in a way, if you like, with calendars, with diaries, with dates, with watches, with clocks, with time, with day. And I suppose in a way I understand that we have to be, because, you know, if we went back a few hundred years and we were just working in the fields, it's hard work. When the sun comes up, you get up and you start working. Sun goes down, stop working. Of course, we don't live those kind of lives now. If someone expects you at 11 o'clock, how are you going to, you need a watch. But I think because we are so bound by watches, clocks, diaries and calendars, it's very easy to get to the end of a year, I think it's human nature, and to sort of say, oh, that was a horrible year, I'm so glad it's over, thinking that next year will be better. because time doesn't know about, time on a metaphysical level does not understand the nature of calendars. Time doesn't know that we're changing a calendar page tonight. So, no, I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I am human and I can't help. I am human and I need to be loved. There. Sorry, Smiths fans. And I am bound to reflect at this time of year on how the year has been. Look, I think it's quite a reflective time of year anyway. It's winter, it's dark, we're so less active. I love being physical and being physically active. I would have loved to have been a farmer in a different life. You don't have time for thinking and navel gazing. However, in the winter, there is more time for thinking and navel gazing. So it's not surprising that we get to this time of year, we reflect on the whole year, and we hope that next year will be better, or that next year will be just as good as this year. Hopefully you've had a good year. And I would say that, on the one hand, oh my goodness, the garden year. This has been my toughest garden year ever. Hands down. And if you took away all the physical stuff, my body stuff, it would still have been a hard year. And I really, really, really hope and entreat for anyone who had their first garden this year, if you struggled, please, hopefully this year was anomalous in terms of the weather, or might get a bit more like it more often, but please don't give up based on this year. I think this is a really, really bad year to base decisions on, because it was really, I know I've been gardening pretty much all my life, but intensively, the allotment for the last 10, it's over 10 years, well over 10 years now, and the number of times I just thought this is not worth it. There were times when I was angry. I was actually angry with the garden. And part of it is that health stuff. So that stupid virus, January, coming home from the hospital in February, I was flat as a pancake for the whole of February. And then normally by March, it's all systems go in the garden. That's when I want to be really at my fittest, because that's when the hard work, the grunt work really starts. So not only was I not at my fittest, I was at my most unfittest I've ever been in my entire life. So to start a garden like that, and then 2 weeks into starting the garden, so 2 weeks of March, getting there, through my back, and my back just would not fix itself for a month. All of you who are regular gardeners, you know that to miss a month from the middle of March to the middle of April, that's nigh on disastrous. Nigh on. It's almost unrecoverable from. But I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn, but also I couldn't not keep going, because that's my food. And if I don't do the garden, I'm suddenly going to have to find an extra £2,000 a year to feed myself, because that's about what the garden produces each year. Where am I going to get £2,000 from? So I stuck with it stubbornly. And then, of course, beginning of June, bam, COVID. I've avoided it for over 2 years, and then suddenly I get it. And, God, I was ill with it. First, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 days, but I didn't even get out of bed other than to go to the bathroom. I'd go to the bathroom to go to the loo, and whilst I was there, I'd refill my water bottle, come back to bed. Didn't eat a thing for those first 5 days. And I think it took 12 days to get a negative test. But that's a nasty virus. And people go, oh, COVID, it's like having the flu, it's like having a cold. That is not like having a cold. Obviously, everybody's body reacts differently. And I might have been at a much lower ebb anyway because of the virus in January. And that I might have been at a lower ebb anyway because of having had the chickenpox virus the summer before. Who knows? Anyway, the long and the short is, just when I was starting to feel like I was making headway with the garden at the end of May, I was out of action again. So I was out of action completely for 2 weeks because I was isolating. But then even when I came back to the garden, oh my God, I remember the first day walking back down there, just the walk alone, I got to the shed. I kind of flopped out on I've got a day bed inside the shed, and I just thought, I can't lift a finger. The walk exhausted me. Anyway, well, we all know I stuck with it. We were in drought, so that meant daily watering, and honestly, it was like almost every day I was like, this is killing me, this is killing me, this is going to kill me, why am I doing this, this is going to kill me. But I'd gone past the point of no return in terms of my time and the value of my time. Honestly, I've thought about this, that period in March when my back went, and it was the middle of April, I think it was about April the 12th or 14th, I went back to the garden for the first time, and I still had I now had 4 weeks work to catch up on. If I had known at that point that I would then be out for 2 weeks with COVID and have a whole summer of drought, which meant daily watering, honestly, if I'd known all that, I think I would have called it quits on the garden in April. I would not have put myself through all of that because it was horrible. At times it was truly horrible. And I don't mean that in a pity party way, I'm just being honest, it was horrible. But by the time I was back from COVID, and I managed, I think it was around about my birthday, around about the beginning of July, I think I'd got everything planted. I was a month behind, but I'd got everything planted. So that meant everything needed to be watered. And it was at that point that I thought, I can't give up now because I've already wasted, it would have been wasted time. What I'm trying to say is, if I gave up in April, I could have spent all those months doing sewing and doing all sorts of other things to generate extra income to buy food. Because I know quite a few people have said, when I give up the garden, well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to eat. Of course, I will be buying my food, but I won't spend all those hours on the garden. I'll spend all those hours creating, and it'll be things to sell or, who knows what. Anyway, yeah, that point of no return, and I just thought, snookered myself royally. But like I said, especially for any newbies this year, it's not always this difficult. It's not always drought for 7 months. Because, the previous summer, we were having rain for 2 weeks, dry for 2 weeks, rain for 2 weeks, dry for 2 weeks. And I timed it pretty perfectly because the rainy 2 weeks, I was down in Kent sorting out my great aunt's house. And the sunny 2 weeks, I was back in London tending my garden. Didn't need to do any watering. Brilliant. Didn't water for the whole summer. 2021, I did no watering. So that's what I mean about how, don't give up. And I'm hoping, I'm not one for praying, but oh my goodness, I might pray, that next year, 2023, we get rain. Sorry about that. I could hear my phone just vibrating. It's in the kitchen. I needed to take that call. I've made another drink. I do feel like I'm getting or coming down with something, so... Oh, it's really sharp. I'm putting less honey in. I think I need a bit more honey. Where were we? I was talking about rain, but I realised I'd also gone off track because I was talking about not making New Year's resolutions, and then I jumped into talking about the garden. But all of this, it all it all comes together. So, a bit of a rubbish year for me as a gardener last year. This year, we haven't gone into next year yet. A rubbish year in terms of, I just didn't enjoy it as much. It was always hard work. I didn't ever get to that point in the year, which I normally get to at some point towards the end of July, and it's for the whole of August, where it stops being hard work, and now it's maintenance. It's just like, oh, la, la, la. It's all the lovely, the meadowland bucolicness. It was a drudge and a trudge this year. And like I said, if I'd known in April what I know now, I would have, anyway. So, And then obviously I made the decision I'm going to give the garden up. I cannot go through another year like we've had this year, because it's taking me longer to do everything these days. So where, let's say I pop down to the garden and I get 4 hours. 3 or 4 years ago, in 4 hours, I would do enough to last a few. It's hard to explain. Now, if I go to the garden for 4 hours, I probably do what I once upon a time did in 1 hour. So I'd have to do 4 4-hour visits to equate to what I used to do in 4 hours. So it's taking me longer to do things. I'm slower in the garden, and every session is more and more painful, and then I come home and that pain continues while I'm at home. It's distracting, all of that kind of stuff. And yes, hopefully one day I'll get knee replacements, but at the moment, it's ankles, it's hips, it's elbows, it's all the joints. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like I said, not pity party. It's just, I have to reflect on these things to be able to move forward and make decisions and make changes. So I know that I can't go on doing the garden that I've done for all these years. Now, when I move, hopefully I'll get a bit of garden when I move. Please, please, please give me a little bit of garden. I don't even care about growing veg, just somewhere I can sit outside with my book, and preferably enough space to sit outside with maybe 2 or 3 friends out there with me. But until I move, I'm keeping the garden for another year because, as I explained, the rent for the year for the garden is 50 quid. The rent for a storage unit, that's 50 quid for a year. If I rent a storage unit, that's 50 quid a month. So if I take all my gardening kit out and put it in storage now, it's going to cost me 50 quid a month. Let's say I don't move till December next year. I hope it's before then. But that would be £600 I'm paying for a storage unit. Whereas, let me just pay 50 quid for another year at the garden. Keep it really low key, low maintenance, as low as possible. Keep it in good order and decent so that when I hand it on, someone gets a nice plot. I'm not going to let it go to wreck and ruin, but really, really minimalise what I do down there. So as we go into next year, I'm going to have a little garden planning seed chat video at some point with you. I haven't even properly decided for myself yet. I really don't know how it's going to work, but massively reduced, probably reduced in terms of variety and all that kind of stuff. Definitely no seeds starting here in the flat. The flat has got to stay tidy and immaculate to get it on the market. Anyway, New Year's resolutions, so it kind of ties into that no, I don't make them, but having reflected on this year and thought, crikey, my body has let me down, my body is letting me down, and that's a bit of a shock for me because I've always been such a physical person all my life. One of the books I've been reading I'll talk about is about running. I miss running. I miss walking, for goodness sakes. I don't even walk anywhere now. So to go from being an incredibly physical person, athletic person, to being so slow in the garden, it's obviously, it's very upsetting, and I'm still having to adjust to that. And I will continue to adjust as things continue to deteriorate. But then getting these viruses, being knocked out by viruses, that's never happened to me before. I've had illnesses, I had all the childhood illnesses, but I think it's been a bit of a wake up this year to say, Vivi, you're not 25 anymore. And that's not to say, I don't think we should just dismiss an illness because of age. We shouldn't just say, oh, it's because you're getting older. No, you can be healthy, and we can age, and we can age healthily. I know people way stronger than me, way fitter and healthier than me, who are 60, 65. So I'm not using age as an excuse. I just mean as time goes on, I think that moment after hospital when I said, have a proper convalescence, I need to work. I need to pay the bills. I can't be off sick, but do something gentle. it's got me to this point of the year to think about next year of saying, you know what, you have to just adjust. You have to be much more gentle, both, oh, my little battery's showing red. Hang on, should we put another battery in? Hang on a tick. That's better. Yeah, so the bottom line is I'm sort of saying to myself, go more gently, go more slowly. Just accept that you have to do less. And I'm not talking that in terms of, oh, because I'm so old, or oh, because I've got arthritis. Just do less in terms of that mental health. Stop trying to work 12 hours a day. It comes back to those books. I hate the expression self-care. I really hate that expression. I think that's a real kind of privileged, kind of developed country, developed world attitude. Oh, self-care. No. However, I'm not going to use the phrase. It is that thing of shifting some of the focus away from running around trying to achieve this, to saying, hang on, have you eaten yet today? Have you taken time to sit down and eat nice and slowly? And then after you've eaten, have a little bit of time to just relax, digest. I'm only talking about like 10 minutes rather than scoffing something on the hoof and dashing off and doing the next thing. So yeah, that's my not New Year's resolution, is to just think about my health a bit more, and where I'd been thinking towards the end of this year, or my body is letting me down, instead of thinking like that, turn it around and think, I've been letting my body down. That's what I've been doing. I've been punishing my body for far too long. I've been expecting far too much of it. You know, every car needs an MOT. Every car needs an oil change every now and again, I think. I don't know. I do this kind of car analogy stuff and I don't know what I'm talking about. But, you know, every machine needs to stop once in a while and, you know, oil change, whatever it is. So that's my kind of thinking. It's not about self-care, but it's about just acknowledging that I've been letting my body down by not giving it some time out, not changing the oil very often. Where's my oil cap? Is it up here? Is that what that lump on my head is? Is it an oil cap? Oh, there it is. Go on, pour it in. Yeah. New Year's resolutions. I mean, have any of you ever made a New Year's resolution and stuck with it and it's changed your life and it's brilliant? I hope so. You know, the usual ones, the diet. Has anyone ever done that? A New Year's resolution diet that you've stuck with and you lost a load of weight and you've maintained that weight loss? Brilliant. Or my favourite one, it's one I'm always encouraging people, is couch to 5K. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution to pick up a pair of running shoes and then discovered the joy, the absolute joy, the gorgeousness of running? Or have you picked a pair up and discovered that you really hate it? It's fine. Either way is fine. I don't know that I've ever made... I'm just trying to think into sort of my 20s and 30s. I don't think I've ever made a New Year's resolution. I've certainly never got to the end of a year and thought, wow, I'm so glad I changed that last January. Look at me now. Oh, maybe next year will be different. I don't know. Right, look, I realised, obviously I've been talking for ages because that battery went flat, and maybe I just didn't recharge it after Christmas Day's video. But that's enough chat for now. I will just say that when we all wake up tomorrow, we'll probably all feel the same. Oh, Vivi, you're miserable. No, what I mean is, I hope... Look, this is what I hope. Crikey, what a year. I didn't even talk about... I wanted to. I didn't even talk about the fantastic sport this year. I am just going to mention the Lionesses. That Murakami book that I was mentioning about the running, the title is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. And I've always thought a good title for my biography would be, when I talk about sport, I'm not talking about sport. Because I rarely am. When I'm talking about sport, I'm talking about metaphors for life, lessons for life. what a great, great year for sport. We had the Worlds at Eugene. Thank you, Eugene, for hosting a great Worlds. We had the amazing Commonwealths in Birmingham. Birmingham, you were stars. It made me want to come back. I haven't been to Birmingham for years, but yeah, great job. The Commonwealth Games, the friendly games, were so full of joy, and it was joyous. The Tour de France this year with Pogačar and Vingegaard in that kind of head-to-head, and that moment when, I forget which way round it was now, I think it was Pogačar crashed and it was Vingegaard's chance to really get away, and he didn't. He stopped. I'm going to cry. It was so beautiful. It's like proper sporting behaviour has returned to cycling, because he waited for Pogačar to get back on his bike. Pogačar sort of gave him a thumbs up to say, I'm okay. Then across the road, they held hands for a moment as if to say, we're both okay. Right, now we get back to our racing. It was beautiful. I loved it. I'm turning into Keith from Pottery Throwdown. But yeah, it was a beautiful moment and a metaphor for life. The metaphor there is, you don't succeed by someone else being down. If someone else is down, give them a hand up, so you start out equally and then go and succeed. But never succeed by kicking someone else down. That's a hollow victory, isn't it? But yeah, the Lionesses. And the reason I cried my eyes out, I was, for the last few minutes of the match, I was on my feet, I was watching, go, come on. When the whistle, and I was shouting, blow the whistle. When the final whistle blew, I jumped. God knows how. I haven't jumped for a long time. I've jumped so hard. My fist into the ceiling. I hurt my fist. But I was going, yeah. And then the tears came. And now it's not tears for a football game. It's not tears for sport. It's none of that. My tears were the fact that the stadium was packed. All the stadiums throughout the whole tournament. By the way, sorry, I'm talking about women's football, the European Championships. Every stadium was packed. And loads of kids and young people in the crowds too. It was wonderful. Full TV coverage. This is the first time in my lifetime that I feel anyway, where there's been some parity between men and women in the game. And the reason I cried was because the camera was panning around the stadium, close up on all these kids' faces, and they were all joyous. And I thought, wow, for these little girls and little boys in the stadium today, women's football, a huge, massive crowd, TV crowds, for them, it's normal. They're not batting an eyelid. For them, it's of course. Why wouldn't we be at a women's football game at Wembley? The stadium's packed, the cameras are on. For them, it's normal. For anyone my age, for us, it's extraordinary. We never thought we'd see the day when Wembley would be full for a women's match. It's amazing. I'm going to get off again. Right. Oh, my goodness. Keith has influenced me. Yeah. So I cried because it just filled me with hope for those little girls and little boys who just see it as equal. It's just completely equal to the men's game. You watch a men's game, you watch a women's game. What they have to learn, they'll learn this the hard way. What isn't normal is for England to win a major championship. That's not normal, kids. Don't get used to it. Or maybe we can. Anyway, oh my goodness, I don't know how did it go on to sport? Doesn't matter. Yeah. 2022. It had its ups and downs globally. It's been chaos, hasn't it? But on a personal level, and I think this every year, I think, you know what? I had some stuff thrown at me. I did all right. I got through. I'll be okay. I'll always be okay. You just have to keep going. So keep in my own little bubble. Keep moving. Keep being okay. Globally, I hope things will be better next year. I hope next year people won't be fighting. I hope next year that people won't care what colour someone's skin is. I hope next year that people won't care what gender you are born with. I hope next year people won't care what gender the person is that you fall in love with. I hope next year people won't care what religion you follow or don't follow. I hope none of us care about any of that stuff. I hope what we care about is that we care. I hope we are caring. I hope we are compassionate. I hope we're empathetic. I hope we are generous. I hope we care about being joyful, about being giving. I hope we care about loving. That's what I hope that we care about next year. And I hope that we all keep hoping. Right, on that note, because I'm going to cry again. What is it? It's this time of year. I'm going to say cheerio to you all for 2022. Let's look forward to a positive, happy, none of those things matter that I just spoke about year of 2023. I will see you on the other side, probably chatting about some books or seeds or dealing with the mess of the garden. Either way, I'll see you all soon. But until then, travel safely through this night into another year. Cheerio, lovelies.